How to change your life in one day, 5 steps. You already know what you need to be doing. That's never really been the problem. So why is it that we can't do what it is that we want, or there's blocks to it? There is a scientist who found the answer, and he wasn't looking for it either. William Miller spent his whole career looking at addiction and behavior change. He co-developed a motivational interviewing system, one of the most effective approaches that we have for helping people change habits. So he's the last person that should be reporting on this. And this is what he found. He kept meeting people who'd been stuck for years, severe addictions, long-term depressions, and they changed suddenly, not slowly, not through treatment, not through therapy years and years, but in a moment. He put a request into his local paper asking anyone who had suddenly changed their lives to come forward, and the response buried him. He found two kinds of people. People who suddenly saw something, but they never let themselves look at. It was almost like a fear of looking at the truth. And then the second type of people who couldn't explain anything rationally at all. It was like a power, a divine intervention. Something happened out of nowhere, but there was this inner knowing. Both kinds shared three things in common. That experience was vivid. They remembered it in detail. They knew exactly where they were. And it arrived without warning, usually on an ordinary day. It was a lasting change. But here's the findings that really matter. When Miller asked them what actually had changed, what happened to them, none of them said, hey, it was willpower. I just started working hard. I was hustling more. I was working later. They instead said that they changed their values on what really mattered to them. Before, they worried about what other people thought, or they worried about being liked or status. Those type of things seemed to drop away. And then instead, their value system changed where they felt a deep connection, meaning, integrity, something that shifted and came more into the center, and they hadn't decided to do it. Different things had simply become more obvious in that moment. It's like they suddenly had a different perspective, which also makes sense biologically. Because if we feel judged, if we feel fear, it puts us into the survival mode, and nothing really changes from that phase. That's Miller's research. And here's what I found when I'm working with clients, is that their values change. And when their values change, their identity changes. And when your whole value system changes, it's like things that you had to push through and try and get motivated for happen easily, or you feel motivated to do them. And the thing that has to happen, whatever is happening right now, has to feel so intolerable. That thing that you want to change, you can't put up with it anymore. And then you can run that process deliberately to say, hey, I want more, and this isn't enough for me. I want more joy. I want more success. I want to contribute. And what is going on for me right now isn't okay. What we're going to do is look at these 5 steps of how we can change. There's 2 ways to attempt change. One is we keep pushing and hustling while our values still stay the same and our perspective still stays the same, our identity still stays the same. Then we're going to exhaust ourselves until we get to a point where we quit, we think it's not possible. What we've got to do is work at the right layer where the values are first. I'm going to walk you through exactly what I do with clients, and you can choose whether you want to do this by yourself now, or you want to work with someone to do this. Okay, so let's start. Step 1. I ask people to write down the behaviors that they want to stop. Maybe it's self-sabotage. Maybe it's stopping yourself from being visible. Whatever it is, what is it that you wish you could stop doing so you could start doing something else? And there's a reason why we need to look at this list first, because we need to read it in a slightly different way. Because every behavior, however self-destructive, makes complete sense once you can look at and find the system that is running it. Every habit is a set of instructions that is running it. If you're reading the output of something, it's not anything to do with you. Say if someone writes down 4 things, or I stay up too late, I don't finish what I start, I say yes when I mean no. You could read all these and think that you need 4 or 5 or 6 fixes. That never really works. And this is the reason why you might have the same things on your list every New Year's resolution. Or you can take that list and think, okay, what is the single set of instructions producing this list? You might have a look at my list and think, okay, mine is like chocolate for 30 years, comfort eating, addiction to sugar. But underneath that, when I look deep enough, the thing that really cost me the most is me holding myself back from being visible. And the thing that was running both of those things and more is that I felt I had no value, regardless of how much people told me, you've changed my life. It was the fact that I didn't feel I was of any value within my own structure. That's what was running my structure. So even when I might have the work ready, I might not put it out. So here's why your list looks the way. When we were children, it didn't matter who you were. Surviving meant staying connected to the people who were caring for us. We learned very fast what would earn us acknowledgement and what got you punished. And then as you learn those, you also learn your value system from this. And that's how your value structure got built. Long before you had any say in it, you didn't choose how that value system got put together. And you didn't take it as opinions. You took it as, this is the only way. I have no choice but to believe this. Because the truth is, at that age, you didn't, because it would affect your survival. So you took it as reality. And that's why it sits underneath all the outputs that you see, all the behaviors, all the things in your life that you see right now. It's basically like an operating system that is running everything. So step 1, have a look at your list. Don't rank them or tidy them up or feel like this is a confession time. What we're doing is looking at the outputs as if it's a reading. Step 2, find the definition of all those behaviors that have in common, because those behaviors might look unrelated, but they're not. Now we're going to ask a different question. We're not going to be asking what's wrong with me. Then you have to think, okay, what would have to be true about me for all of these outputs to make sense? It's not a reflection on you, but it's a reflection on discovering and digging out, okay, what is this structure running on and what value system have I got? Mine, like I said, I felt like I had no value. And I know exactly where it's come from, because I grew up in an era where parents worried about dowries from the moment the daughter was born. So a dowry, if you don't know what a dowry is, it's close to making a payment to a man for marrying your daughter. And nobody explained that I'm not of value from a young age, like the day I was born. I absorbed it. It was like every single time a girl was born, I took it on as information on how much I was worth. And then I spent 30 years producing the behavior that matched that. I overgave at work, in relationships, everywhere. But because I thought if I gave enough, maybe I'd be worth keeping. But this took me the longest to accept. Most of my beliefs were never mine. They're installed by our parents, our teachers, culture, and because they needed you to be a particular way. Most of them are doing the best that they can based on what they too have been handed. So one more question, and this is the one that most people skip. Now, do you know what it's costing you? Sometimes it's obvious, you're getting frustrated about it. But we want to look at, what am I getting from this? Because it's not there to ruin your life. It's unconsciously protecting you from something. So for instance, when I overgive, I'm never rejected for asking too much. When I stayed invisible, I was never criticized. There's always a payoff. And until you can say what the payoff is out loud to yourself, we have to accept that there's a part of us that is choosing this because it's trying to keep us safe. Okay, now we can look at step 3. We're going to look directly at what happens if we change nothing. This is the most powerful thing that Miller found. If you can actually just be honest and not be hopeful about that somehow something's going to change by itself, you're more likely to take the action to create that new version of you. So we want to look at the worst case scenario, because you won't change if you can still see a better future, you change because it's no, I don't want this anymore. I want my life to change. There's a reason we are built for pain more strongly than we are built for gain. Psychologists call this the loss aversion. So that's why most self-help doesn't really help us when we get to this point, when we have to own up to, okay, I need to change this. So let's build that. Mine looked like I was doing all that positive thinking, books, visualizations, hypnosis, goal setting. I did all of it. And the only thing it really made me good at was proving my value. I worked harder. And the harder and harder I worked, I felt less and less valued deep down until I believed I was worth nothing. Then on an ordinary day, the thought arrived, is this what I want for my children? To feel exactly how I'm feeling deep down without putting on this show, to feel how I'm feeling this stress inside, feeling worthless inside and covering it up. Do I really want them to feel like this? Because they don't learn from what I tell them to do. They learn from seeing and watching what I'm doing, how I'm being treated, how I'm living, how I'm suffering, and how I'm not taking care of me, and how I'm not reaching for my own dreams. And I could see then that that would then be passed down from generation to generation to generation. And that's when I was like, no, I can't do that. It was sudden. It's like, and I had to admit it. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And Miller found the same shape. Before the sudden changes, there's almost like a long build-up of pressure. If we were to look at it outwardly, you could see it as a bit of an earthquake. It's like it's gathering along a fault line for years while nothing appears to change. And then all of a sudden you see this movement and this change happens. It's not about fighting. It's really allowing that presence to come in and see where you're at right now. So step 3 is this question. If nothing changes in 5 years, where does this take me in terms of my health, my work, my relationships, my contribution, other people watching me? Don't be reasonable. Reasonable leaves you hopeful. I don't want you to lose your hope, but use your hope in the appropriate ways because we want to see the system so we can change it. Okay, step 4. And this is where everything starts to turn. Then we can look at, okay, I want to write the opposite identity. Then we go, okay, this is what's running this system. What's the opposite of that? I am worthy. And then you take a small action that proves that to yourself because you can't argue yourself into becoming a new version of yourself, like a new identity. You can only do small things that prove that the old identity has moved on. Mine was simple. I had to write down, I'm worthy. I am someone of value. And that it's not conditional on how much I give. You feel it as if it's contracting in your body because it's going against something that you've believed most of your life. And then you go, okay, this is good because I can feel a little bit of tension. Then I'll look for a crack. Okay, I don't want a massive plan where I'm going to prove my worth and have these million followers or anything like that. But I'm going to have a small crack that's obviously good for me to take action on. And it's something that feels distinctly uncomfortable. I need to be more visible and get my value out there. And I'm going to get help to do that, which is admitting that I can't do it alone. And I'm valuable enough to get some help to do that. I feel nervous writing that down, but that's also how I know this is a good small crack and an action for me to take. Let me explain why the body objects when we're moving towards the real you. Your nervous system defends that identity. When something contradicts how you see yourself truly, you get a response that looks and feels like a physical threat in your body. You might feel it in your heart, maybe you feel it in your stomach. It just feels uncomfortable. So when your body says no, it isn't proof that it's not possible for you. That's just your system noticing that actually there's no route yet. We haven't made this a safe route. It's the unknown, which is why the fear you find isn't the fear of that new identity. It's almost like, oh my gosh, who am I going to be without the old identity? It's not that you don't want success, it's that you don't know who you'll be without maybe suffering, because it's been such a part of your identity. And I just want to make it clear that's the ego part of us, which believes it's not going to exist without, say, that suffering or that devaluation structure. But the truth is, you will still exist without it. It's that you'll get your truer version of yourself. Step 4, if it doesn't make you slightly nervous, it's probably not the right thing for you to do. But we want to take an action. Okay, step 5, and this is the most important that nobody really teaches. We need to ask, what has this system taught you that you couldn't have learned any other way? Because it stops needing to run once you've collected what that learning is there for. And if you skip this, unfortunately, you're going to have to keep repeating the pattern until you can get the learning from it. Picture this, someone that has done all the steps and it's worked. 6 months of saying no and putting their work out there, asking for help, and then something happens, like a bad quarter or a trigger. Before you know it, she's back in her old pattern, saying yes to everything she wants to say no to, losing her confidence. Nothing she did was wrong. She was so close. But she never took that last step. What was it that this pattern showed her that she couldn't have otherwise learned? That's why so much change can be temporary, because it's missing that completion. And it isn't just about forgiveness, although forgiveness is incredible. It's the answer to that one question. What do I now know that I wouldn't have otherwise known? Mine took me years. I learned what happens to someone that doesn't know their own value again and again and again, until I started to understand what real value is and where it comes from. For me, real power comes from the Creator, the universe, God. And I've also learned that self-kindness lowers stress. Biologically, what happens to us, which allows us to think more clearly. That's why being hard on ourselves and being judgmental is the opposite of what we need. So there's 2 ways to leave any type of pattern. We can leave damaged and be in survival mode for the rest of our lives, and where we don't really connect and expand. Or we can take the wisdom from it, so we're more connected, we're more present. So step 5 is, what did I learn that I couldn't have learned anywhere else? And if nothing comes, that's information too. In my experience, it means that we need to go back to step 3 and make sure that's complete. So there's 5 steps. Write the behaviors, find the identity underneath, and look honestly at where it's going. Name the opposite and find a small, uncomfortable action that you're going to take. And then look at, what has this whole process taught me? Now we've talked through that, your circumstances will be the same tonight as they were in the morning. But what can change is the direction. And the direction decides where you end up. And just so you know, I'm going to be doing my own step 4 while I record this, which feels only fair to say. Mine is, I am going to be more visible, and I'm going to get some help for it. So I'm hiring a coach. One thing before you go, there are 5 patterns that stop change from holding. I've turned this into a short quiz so you can find out which patterns is holding you back. There's 10 questions. It's only 3 minutes. It's free, and you also get a short recording from me about what you can do about that specific pattern. It's at amancore.com/quiz/quiz. Link's going to be in the description and also pinned in the comments. Be kind to yourself while you do this, not because it's nice, but because the state that you're actually in, either you grow or you contract. I'm sending you so much love. Till next time.